you're going to have higher profit margins with private labeling, right? But you're going to have lower profit margins with drop shipping. So if you want the happy medium, if you can afford the happy medium, if you can afford to ship stuff out, handle the logistics on the back end, then I would say welcome back to another episode of the Nebulos Entertainment Podcast. Today we're going to be discussing merchandise. We're going to be discussing it from a game company's perspective, what we've done, what we are looking to do in the future, and basically where we're at right now and what we're doing right now on the whole merchandise side of things. So, Eric, did you have anything that you wanted to kick us off with, or did you want to get straight into it?
I think we can get straight into it. So, considering this is more of your realm, and you've done a lot more research and you have a lot more knowledge about this stuff, I'm going to ask you just some, brief topic questions and let you go. And the first, I guess, would basically just be, give me like an overview of how you see merchandise from our perspective, or a small studio.
So, for a small studio, okay, so there's a few things you can do. The first and foremost is like you need to know what you want to sell, right? So is it apparel? Is it certain types of apparel? Do you only want to do hoodies? Do you only want to do shirts? Do you want to do accessories such as like coffee mugs or water bottles? Do you want to do stickers? If you're more of like an established company like Blizzard or like Mojang, right? Like you can do statues, or more poster related items, some more art directed books. Like there's a ton of different things that you can do. It's going to depend on, one, how much money you have to work with. Two, is your following big enough to the point where you're actually going to be, making money off of selling merchandise, because you're going to, take a pretty big hit up front in terms of costs. And three, it's that, like, is your stuff recognized enough to the point where, because you don't want to hold inventory for long, right? You want to get it and you want to be able to move it right away. So let's kind of get into this. So, for example, let's say that you want to do some shirts. Let's say you want to do some hoodies. Think about like any company that you work for, right? Like if you work for a corporation, they usually hand out like, pens, pencils, notebooks. They can get anything with their name on it. And there's going to be a ton of companies out there that you can actually do that. I think like 4imprint is one. There's a whole list of companies where basically like you pay for the item, they have the item. You could do like Adidas, you could do Nike, you could do Under Armour type apparel or backpacks, and you could just literally stitch your name on it. But that's going to come at a pretty high cost, especially if you're white labeling, these other companies such as like Under Armour, Nike, Adidas, whatever the case is, with your name on it. So what we had done as a company when we first started selling shirts and hoodies and stickers and everything, we used Redbubble, we used Printful. So these are drop shipping services. So basically with drop shipping, what happens is you can tie it to your website. So somebody would go onto your website, they say, oh, I like this shirt, I'm going to buy this shirt, and it goes to a third-party fulfillment center, which is, Printful, it's Printify, it's Redbubble. There's a lot of these third-party fulfillment drop shipping sites out there that you can use. And what happens is they fulfill the order and they ship it out. Now, the problems that we ran into was, one, your margins are going to suffer. You're going to have like no profit margins. Two, the customer service tends to be pretty lackadaisical and pretty weak. You're not in control from the company. So like while it's your name on the item, you're not in control with how the customer service and how the costs and the shipping and the fulfillment side goes, because you're using a third party. So you're hoping that they, can handle it correctly. So, you're basically like your hands are basically off of the product. Some more issues that we ran into was when COVID hit. So like we'd been doing this for, I would say, Eric, I would say that we ran it for probably like 5 or 6 months. It wasn't like too long, I would say. But then COVID hit, and some of the items at that point in time, one, like they were taking 3, 4, 5 weeks to get delivered, which was just insane. And
Right.
we didn't, so like, and we were already making like small margins to begin with. So what we had decided to do was just cut it off entirely, like just cut the head off the snake. And we did that because we didn't want any negativity coming back to us, because we knew we couldn't control the outcome of somebody what they were shipping, right? So like we wiped our hands of it completely, took it off of our website. We haven't really sold any merchandise since because we just quit selling it. And the reason that we did that is because we were looking into getting, we want to figure out what items we want to do next. Okay, so like there's when it comes to looking at merchandise, there's really 3 things that you can do. Dropship, which is what I just talked about, right? So basically, you have a third-party company that has like basic T-shirts, basic hoodies, and what they do is they put your logo on stuff, whatever you want. Like you can add the designs to everything. They will fulfill the order. They'll ship the order. But your profit margins suck. They're terrible. But there's like very little upfront cost, I would say. So it's the cheapest option for you as a business, but your margins are going to suffer because you're just basically like, think about going to like the dollar store, right? And like those coffee mugs that you see at the dollar store, for example, it's like if you just put like your label on that and they would send it out to somebody. So that's one. Drop shipping is one. White labeling is something you can do also, which is basically like you get a catalog of items and you can add like your own like care label tag to it. You can add your own embroidered logo. You can basically do whatever you want to. And the cost is, your margins are bigger, but the cost is more expensive than drop shipping up front because you have to pay for the items up front. And usually there's an MOQ, which is a minimum order quantity. Okay, so with the minimum order quantity, it's going to be like, websites are different. So it says you have to order 50 shirts up front, right? Or you have to order 50 hoodies up front, or 20 or 100, whatever. Like each company's different for what their MOQ is. So with drop shipping, you don't have any inventory. With white label, you have inventory because you're basically looking at a catalog. You're saying, I like this shirt, I like this hoodie, I like blah, 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 whatever items that you like. You stitch your label on it, you stitch your logo on it, whatever the case is, and then you now hold the inventory, and then you as the company have to ship it out unless you, again, like want to send it to a fulfillment agency. But then that also costs money because the fulfillment agency has to hold your inventory, right? Mm-hmm. And then they got to ship it out too. So you're paying them. So the upfront cost for white labeling is more expensive than for drop shipping, right? Because now you're holding inventory. You have to pay for everything up front. You have to fill the minimum order quantity. And it's not going to be like one or two things. And, unless you went to like, if you went on like Alibaba or like AliExpress, something to that extent, overseas, some companies will let you work with, 5, 10, 15, 20 items if you wanted to, put your label on it. But one, you have to test the quality beforehand. Two, you want to make sure that you can do everything that you want to with those companies, because sometimes they have regulations and stipulations, and it may not be to the customization that you want. So there's pros and cons to both. My advice would be to, if you're gonna look at white labeling, I would say go on Alibaba, go on AliExpress, whatever the case is that you're comfortable with. And I would say to search for suppliers that are, one, verified, two, they have trade assurance. So trade assurance is that, let's say you place an order and they have a certain deadline. So it's within 30, 45 days in order to ship your order to you. So if they don't ship your order, like something goes wrong along the lines, like because they have trade assurance guarantee, you get your money back. So those are two things that I would say you definitely want to look for: verification, trade assurance. You can also filter by that on Alibaba, just for your awareness. The third option that you have, so you have drop shipping, you have white label, you also have what's called private labeling, which is what I do with the Iron Pulse company. So private labeling is that you design apparel from scratch. Now, the cost for this is astronomical. I would not recommend private labeling for a video game company. I don't even know if Blizzard does that. They might. I would say they probably do like a private label of some extent. I don't think that they have an apparel line assembly team for some of their. They might for some of their stuff, but like the bigger companies can afford to do that. The costs are going to be anywhere from like, depending on how many items you want, like 30,000 plus. There is no ceiling. Like there's no cap. Because you do all the sketches, you do all the 3D renders, you do all the tech packs and the measurements for the factory, all those specifications. But this enables you to like, custom brand like aglets or eyelets or anything that you want down to like the material, right? So you can change the material of the item, you can change how thick something is, how thin something is. So like you can literally, if you can dream it, you can build it, right? But finding factories that specialize in those particular items they can be a pain in the ass, and I know because I deal with it, and it's a lot more expensive. So for somebody that's watching this video, for example, I would say to steer away from the private label. I would say your best bet is going to be more of the white label if you can afford to buy 20 to 50 items up front, depending on how many items you want, how many colors of each item you want, how many sizes that you want, and if you want to ship it out. If you feel like you don't want to handle inventory, you don't want to ship stuff out, then my best bet for you is going to be drop shipping. But drop shipping comes at lower profit margins. There's pros and cons to each. You're going to have higher profit margins with private labeling, right? But you're going to have lower profit margins with drop shipping. So if you want the happy medium, if you can afford the happy medium, if you can afford to ship stuff out, handle the logistics on the back end, then I would say white labeling is probably your best bet for somebody in this industry. Eric, when we go to eventually have products again, we'll probably white label, depending on what the cost is, and depending on if I can find the items that I like for us. Because private labeling, like I wouldn't put our company through that right now. But again, this comes back to like, what you want to offer as a company. Do you want to have like statues? Do you want to offer trading cards? Do you want to offer like, I don't know, like throw pillows or like something, Eric, like those shapely pillows that, match like, I don't know, characters like Mario pillows or like whatever the case is. Like if you figure out what you want, like art books, for example, find somebody that specializes in those particular things. For statues, for trading cards, it's going to be very hard for like if you're designing a board game, right? It's going to be very hard from a game perspective, from a gaming company's perspective, to find a company that specializes in those things, and it's going to come at a cost, right? It's going to come at a cost.
Definitely.
So my advice again to somebody that's starting out, like if you were starting out, from scratch, okay, and you didn't know what you wanted to do, but you had a good following, you had a good company, you wanted to start offering merchandise, I would say, maybe get like one or two t-shirt designs, maybe one or two colors of each. Start with the neutral colors, maybe start with black, gray, white, or your brand colors, whatever your brand colors are that, run along those lines. Maybe start with like a hoodie. Everybody wears hats. Everybody wears like the winter tassel caps, right? I would start with items up top first. So like I would start with the hoodies, the sweatshirts, the shirts up top before I would do pants. Pants and shorts, they're a lot harder to nail down than tops are. And because like people's bottoms, I feel fluctuate a lot more than their tops, and I can vouch for this because I do it on the whole other end. So, and like I said, my advice would be to do that, offer, three to four things total, maybe two colors of a t-shirt, two colors of a hoodie, and maybe, if you can do it, 10 to 15 of each. But if you're drop shipping, then you add whatever products you want to from what their catalog is, and you don't have to handle the inventory. But again, your customer service might suffer because you're not handling that. So like you don't want your company rep to get basically a bad name or like run into any PR issues, because you're hands off. Like you don't handle the drop shipping. So if you can afford the white label, and if you understand inventory, if you understand how to ship stuff out on like maybe Shopify or whatever the case is, if you use like Webflow, e-commerce, BigCommerce, like there's a bunch of commerces out there that you can use. then I would say, like, yeah, take a crack at white labeling if that's something you want to do. Your margins are going to be a little bit bigger, but the upfront cost is going to be more expensive. So it all depends on how much money you want to spend and what your experience is and what you're willing to learn. So like for us, Eric, it was kind of easy for us to get started in that because like I understood it, a little bit in the beginning, but obviously as we progressed, the more knowledge I gained on the subject matter. And I've done drop shipping, I've done white labeling, I've done private labeling. So I have a very good understanding of, those three categories. But you need to know what you want to offer to your customers. Is it apparel? Do you want to go straight for the trading cards? Do you want to go straight for art books? Do you want to go straight for statues, for in game, for the characters you have in game? Like whatever you are developing, making as a company, get creative with it. You can go and more than likely you can find somebody on Alibaba overseas that is a manufacturer of something that you're looking for. You just might have to work a little bit with your creativity based on what that specific company or manufacturer is able to do if you don't want to break the bank. But again, especially now with logistics and oil and gas prices being the way that they are, you're going to be paying more for shipping overseas than obviously you would in the States here in the domestic for US. However, labor costs are obviously cheaper overseas than they are here. That's just the way that it works. So did you have any follow-up questions to that?
No, I think that was pretty straightforward. We eventually do want to look back into it, but the drop shipping thing was definitely a learning. Like you said, we cut it off when we realized that it could impact our name. So
right, it could impact us as a company.
That to me would be the biggest warning is, make sure, like Cam said, you know what you want to do up front, because there's a lot of stuff that can come down the pike from it, so you want to be careful.
And here's what I would say to that is if you were in the situation that like me, Eric Kahn, like the whole Nebulos team was in with the drop shipping, yes, our margins are small, but it's not like we were making a ton of money from it. So like it was a better move on our end to just get rid of any negativity, right? Because it's not like we were living and quitting our jobs off of the drop shipping we were doing. And if that's the case that you are making, enough from drop shipping, hell, you could probably start doing white labeling, make more money, and handle the logistics, the PR, like everything would then be in your court. You don't have to worry about drop shipping. So I would say if you have a consistent stream of income from products and you're drop shipping right now, honestly consider white labeling. Look into white labeling because you're going to be making more money for it, and you have a consumer group that's willing to support you. So my last piece is to anybody that's looking into doing crowdfunding, whether it's Kickstarter, whether it's Indiegogo, whether it's any other form of crowdfunding in which you offer products to people, make sure you can fulfill those products. How many times have we run into a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo campaign that fails or they succeed and then they start getting sued because they're not getting the products or they're not getting, whatever tiers that were offered up that you paid for. Okay, so like if you're going to offer, hoodies, if you're going to offer, again, I come back to like posters or trading cards or t-shirts or like anything that is a tangible, like pins or buttons, like anything that is a tangible item, make sure that one, you cover your ass in profit margins. So you don't want to be offering a $10 hoodie on, a $1 to $2 to $5 tier or even a $10 tier, right? Because you're going to lose money right out of the gate. Number two, you need to make sure that you can have the items fulfilled. So I'm not saying buy them. Do not buy the items before you run your Kickstarter campaign without knowing if it's going to be successful or not, because you're already taking an L right there. You need to just be transparent with your customers and the group that's supporting you and be like, okay, we're in the 10 out of 30 days. So we're a third of the way through with our Kickstarter campaign. We've made 20 grand. We need $5,000 more to go. At that point in time, I would say yes, you're a third of the way through. You only need $5,000 more. Look at the financial projection of we think that we're going to hit our goal. So let's start getting the wheels in motion in terms of like, let's start placing orders for products. We know how much we need based on, who's already signed up for the 1, 2, 5, 10, whatever tier you have. Mm-hmm. So like you can already get a general inventory count right then and there. Okay. And, you want to try to plan for the unexpected as much as possible. So again, with the Kickstarter campaign, do your research before you go into a Kickstarter and let it go live, because you need to know, like, okay, if this succeeds, this is the company I'm going to order my pins from. This is the company I'm going to order my t-shirts from. Here's the cost that they, quoted me. It's a rough estimate, but here's the cost. And yes, it might fluctuate, a couple $100s, but like depending on how many you want to actually order when the time comes to place that order. But you're going to have a better understanding of, number one, the cost, number two, the time, and just making sure that your supporters want to continue to support you. Because if you already getting sued on a Kickstarter campaign, your name's just going to be dragged through the mud. So
right,
that's where we can leave it right there. I mean, it's
sounds good.
Yeah. I mean, if people show more interest in merchandise for wanting to look at dropshipping, private labeling, white labeling, that we can dive deeper into one particular topic when the time comes. But think about it, especially if you're on a YouTube, you can tie your drop shipping like Printify to your YouTube. Depending, I think it's like at least 10,000 subscribers. There's certain stipulations for YouTube, but you can tie that to the bottom of your page if you have that following. But again, if you have that following, I would really highly recommend you look into something like white labeling. And if you don't want to worry about fulfillment, maybe look into a third-party fulfillment center, shipping everything out, because the upfront work is going to be greater, but you're going to increase your profit margins 100%. So, we hope that you found some value in this, and thank you for taking the time to listen. We want you to succeed in the merchandising that you choose to offer for your company. If you'd like to support us and dive deeper into the world of game development, you can do so on our Nebulos Entertainment Patreon. We'll put the link in the show description. You can follow us on social media at Nebulos_ENT to stay up to date with our latest development as well. And the Dev Journals will be on Patreon. Above all, remember that there is a story in all of us, but it's up to you